the salty air drifted over Harmony Bay. It carried the scent of sea and secrets. The town, nestled along the rugged coast, was a picture of tranquility. Victorian houses, painted in pastels, lined the winding streets. Their gables seemed to whisper tales of a gentler time. But beneath the charming facade, a darkness lurked. It had taken root in Blackwood Manor, a towering Victorian mansion perched upon the cliffs. The mansion was a relic of a bygone era. It stood as a stark contrast to the cheery demeanor of the town. Its once bright paint was now peeling and faded. The ornate details, once a testament to the wealth of its original owners, were now cloaked in shadows. The windows, like vacant eyes, stared out at the town below. They seemed to hold a silent warning for those who dared to approach. The Smith family arrived in Harmony Bay seeking a fresh start. They were drawn to the idyllic charm of the town and the promise of a peaceful life. Mr. Smith, as John: "This place is perfect for us, Mary. Just look at the grandeur of Blackwood Manor. It's the ideal place to raise our family." Mrs. Smith, as Mary: "I don't know, John. There's something about this house that makes me uneasy. I can't quite put my finger on it." Despite Mary's reservations, the family moved into Blackwood Manor. Their two children, 10-year-old Emily and 8-year-old Ethan, were thrilled with the sprawling house and its many mysterious rooms. The mansion, once shrouded in silence, echoed with the sounds of life once more. Laughter filled the halls, momentarily chasing away the shadows that clung to the corners. But the darkness always returned. It lingered in the air, a constant reminder of the mansion's unsettling presence. Blackwood Manor held many secrets. None were as unsettling as the mirrors that adorned its walls. Unlike ordinary mirrors, these shimmered with an unnatural light. Their surfaces seemed to ripple and distort, reflecting back twisted versions of reality. The children, drawn to the strange allure of the mirrors, would spend hours staring into their depths. Emily: "I swear I saw a girl with eyes as black as night staring back at me." Ethan: "And my reflection had this mischievous grin that sent shivers down my spine." Their parents dismissed these claims as childish fantasies. But as the days turned into weeks, a sense of unease began to creep into their hearts as well. They noticed their own reflections, flickering and changing. Their eyes seemed to hold a new, unsettling glint. The Smith family's behavior began to change. John, once a devoted husband and father, became withdrawn and irritable. He would spend hours locked in his study, his eyes glued to the stock market ticker on his computer screen. Mrs. Smith, as Mary: "John, you need to spend more time with us. The kids miss you." Mr. Smith, as John: "I just need to focus, Mary. This is important." Mary, once the picture of warmth and kindness, became cold and distant. She wandered the halls of the manor like a restless spirit, her eyes vacant and distant. The children, once full of life and laughter, became eerily quiet. They no longer played in the garden or explored the nearby beach. Instead, they remained inside the manor, their gazes fixed on the shimmering mirrors that seemed to hold them captive. The townspeople, who had initially welcomed the Smiths with open arms, began to whisper amongst themselves. They spoke of strange lights emanating from the manor at night and the haunting melodies that drifted from its windows. Mrs. Johnson, the kindly older woman who lived across the street from Blackwood Manor, had always been fond of the Smiths. She had watched with growing concern as their behavior became increasingly erratic.
"I've known the Smiths for years. Something isn't right."
One evening, after witnessing Mary wandering aimlessly through the manor's overgrown garden, Mrs. Johnson decided to investigate. She had known the Smiths long enough to know that something was terribly wrong.
"I can't just stand by and do nothing."
As she cautiously approached the manor, a cold gust of wind sent shivers down her spine. The once grand entrance was now dilapidated and overgrown with ivy. The door creaked open with a groan as if warning her to turn back. Ignoring the voice in the back of her mind urging her to flee, Mrs. Johnson stepped inside. The air inside was heavy and still, thick with the scent of decay. Cobwebs hung from the once magnificent chandeliers and dust covered the antique furniture.
Oh dear, what has happened here?
The only light came from the eerie glow of the mirrors that lined the walls. Each mirror reflected a distorted and unsettling image of the manor, as if reality itself were breaking down within its walls. A sense of dread washed over Mrs. Johnson as she made her way through the darkened halls.
Smiths, are you there? It's Mrs. Johnson.
Her heart pounding in her chest, Mrs. Johnson slowly ascended the stairs. The humming grew louder with each step, leading her to a room at the end of the hallway. As she approached the grand staircase, she heard a noise coming from the top floor. It was a soft, melodic humming, both beautiful and haunting. She called out for the Smiths, her voice echoing through the empty halls. There was no reply, only the sound of her own heartbeat pounding in her ears.
What is that sound?
With a deep breath, she pushed the door open, ready to face whatever awaited her inside. Section 7. The mirror holds no answers.
Taking a deep breath, Mrs. Johnson pushed the door open. The room was a reflection of the manor itself, once opulent, but now decaying and shrouded in shadow. In the centre of the room stood the largest mirror Mrs. Johnson had ever seen. Its surface rippled and shimmered, casting an otherworldly glow upon the 4 figures standing before it.
It was the Smith family. But they were not the same family Mrs. Johnson once knew. Their skin was pale and translucent, their eyes hollowed out and completely black. They moved with an unnerving fluidity, their limbs contorting at unnatural angles. They chanted in unison, their voices a chorus of disharmony that sent chills down Mrs. Johnson's spine. The figures turned in unison, their empty eyes fixing upon Mrs. Johnson. A collective gasp escaped their lips, their voices a distorted echo of the family she once knew. Section 8. A legend cast in shadow.
Mrs. Johnson stumbled back in horror, her mind struggling to comprehend the scene unfolding before her eyes. The chanting grew louder, the figures advancing towards her with an unnerving grace. She turned and fled, her heart pounding against her ribs. As she ran through the halls of Blackwood Manor, she could hear the shattering of glass behind her. The figures were breaking free from their mirrored prison. She didn't stop running until she reached the safety of her own home.
The townspeople, alerted by Mrs. Johnson's frantic cries, gathered outside Blackwood Manor. But it was too late. The manor stood silent and still, its secrets locked within its walls. The Smith family was never seen again. Some whispered that they were trapped within the mirrors, their souls forever bound to the cursed mansion. Section 9. Harmony Bay Remembers. In the aftermath of the Smith family's disappearance, the townspeople of Harmony Bay sealed Blackwood Manor. Its doors and windows were boarded shut, and a heavy chain was wrapped around the iron gate that stood at the end of the long, winding driveway. The manor stood on the cliffs, a constant reminder of the darkness that lay hidden beneath the town's idyllic facade. Over time, the legend of the mirrored family became a cautionary tale whispered amongst the townspeople. Parents would warn their children not to stare too long into mirrors, lest they be lured into the same fate as the unfortunate Smith family. And so, Harmony Bay held its breath, forever haunted by the chilling tale of Blackwood Manor and the family consumed by its mirrors. Section 10. Beware the mirrored gaze. The mirrors in Blackwood Manor remained, reflecting nothing but emptiness and decay. They stood as a testament to the fragility of reality and the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of even the most idyllic of places. The tale of the mirrored family serves as a chilling reminder to beware the gaze of those who reflect back something other than what we expect. For within the depths of reflection, we may find not ourselves, but something far more sinister. Beware the mirrored gaze.